Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to this week's Michigan Man. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Are you ready for Loyola and Sister Jean on Saturday? We have the early game just after 6 p.m. from San Antonio, and the nightcap is another great matchup between Villanova and Kansas. It just doesn't get any better than these 3 weeks in March. I'd say that even if we weren't in the Final Four, but we are, and whatever happens on Saturday night, it's been another great ride this season. Joining me in just a minute on our Game Day segment is a first-time guest. Rachel Lenzi from Land of 10 will be with us to talk Final Four, Frozen Four, and just a bit of spring practice. First, a few news and notes to get us started. If you're a Michigan fan, it just does not get any better than this. We have a few days to let our fingernails grow back from last weekend, stock up on some cool beverages and pretzels, and get ready for what will, no doubt, be a nerve-wracking semifinal game with Loyola. I'd like to think the offense will come out and torch them like we did Texas A&M, but I think we're up against a red-hot, confident, well-coached team that fears no one right now. This is what it's all about, and I can't wait. Speaking of waiting, whatever happens this weekend, we'll have a few more days to recover, and then we have to be ready for the Frozen Four, which really looks like the Big Ten tournament with special guest Minnesota Duluth. We get Notre Dame on Thursday, and if we get past them, the winner of Ohio State, Minnesota Duluth. Can you imagine a national championship game between us and that school down south? Man, that would be sweet. But first we have to deal with a very good Fighting Irish team. Lost in all of this commotion, well, sort of, is the fact spring practice is underway for football. But we'll have plenty of time in the coming weeks to talk about that. And there is also a Big Ten championship for women's gymnastics. Congratulations to Coach Plocky and the ladies for another great season. So many great teams playing at such a high level on campus right now. It truly is great to be a Michigan Wolverine right now. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Land of 10. It's a great site that covers us and the rest of the Big Ten. The app is great and it's one of my go-to stops every morning all year. They cover it all. On this week's Game Day segment, we're joined for the first time by Rachel Lenzi, who does a great job covering all things Michigan for Land of 10. Like me, she hopes we appreciate what John Beilein and his team have accomplished this year. It's been a great ride, and just flat out fun to watch this team molded and pieced together by Coach B. Rachel Lenzi is up next here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Joining us this week on our Game Day segment to talk Michigan hoops, surprise, surprise, is Rachel Lenzi, who covers the Wolverines for Land of 10. It's great to have you on the show. First-time guest, Rachel.
All right, well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, let's get started with some hoops talk. It's been quite a ride this year, as we all know, for anyone that follows Michigan basketball, and a quite unexpected ride, I might add. You have watched this team all year. How surprised are you that they've made it to this point?
You know, honestly, I'm not surprised at this point. If you had asked me this, after they had lost to Purdue, after they'd had that last-second win earlier in January against Maryland, I'd be like, oh, I don't know if this is a Final Four team just yet. But this is a good example of, I think they've got one of the top 10 defenses in the country. Their outside shooters are superb. And if you look at, Saturday night's game against Florida State, their defense really kept Florida State's shooters and their height really off balance. You know, there was a point in that game where I thought, well, gosh, whoever scores first or next is going to win this game. It felt kind of like a hockey game in that regard. But Michigan's getting to the point where they're getting hot at the right time. They're getting contributions not only just from all the right people, but if you look at the people who are, coming off the bench. I think of John Teskey, who's really done a great job. Duncan Robinson, who was my vote for Sixth Man of the Year in the Land of 10, the all Big Ten team as well. You're seeing a very balanced effort and very balanced contributions from this whole team, and I think that speaks really, really well to Michigan. And Michigan also had the benefit of being in that West region. There was a lot of, there was a lot of kind of uproar that Michigan wasn't put in the Detroit, put in Little Caesars to open the tournament. But I remember looking at the bracket and thinking, I think Michigan's got a better chance to make the run if they come out of Wichita. But nobody listened to me until they came out of Wichita and advanced to, the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. I said, this might be a good thing. So it's really kind of a confluence of strong factors and benefits that have really helped Michigan make it this far. And that's not to take away from them. They're a good team. Morris Wagner, when he faltered, you saw, again, a lot of guys come off the bench, a lot of guys fill his role, and he really caught fire, especially against Texas A&M at a point where he really kind of broke out of that slump he's been in and really powered Michigan, not just offensively, but with his all-around game.
Well, that's the thing. When you look back on this season, we knew coming in, when the season started in late November, we had Mo Wagner, and everyone thought, hey, he's a first-round draft pick, so we have him, but who else do we have? What will it amount to when the tournament comes in March? We really didn't know. So I think that's the fascinating thing about watching this team to this very minute, to the Final Four, Rachel. They do have Mo Wagner. It's not as if he's looked like a first-round draft pick in this tournament through the first 4 games, but there are so many moving parts to this team. It truly is a team effort.
Right. I mean, if you look at what's happened with Charles Matthews, he's really kind of taken on a really strong role. He's stepped up just beautifully in this tournament. I think he's really just improved his stock as a player as well. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman as well. There's 2 guys that really jump out to me. And again, like I said, John Teskey, he's come in a pinch, and obviously Jordan Poole with that heave-ho against Houston that helped win the game. I think, again, I can't say enough. I think that this just really, really speaks to the depth and the character of this program.
Well, I have to admit, I did not think a run in a tournament like this was in the cards for Michigan this year. But when I look back again at the season, and if I pick one game that made me think, okay, we might have something here, it was that win over Michigan State at the Breslin. To me, that was the turning point in this season. Was there a moment or a game for you when you thought, hey, this team might be better than I thought?
Yeah, I think it was after the loss at Northwestern, where Northwestern, they had nothing to lose at that point. And I said, well, here's where Michigan, I think this is really going to be a crossroads for them, if you will. I said, they're not out of contention for the tournament. I think they were pretty much on their way, but they really want to solidify themselves and form their identity and start to make a big run. They can either use the Northwestern game as a springboard or kind of let it hold them back. And sure enough, Michigan just boomed from there. The next game was against Wisconsin at the Kohl Center in Madison, which is a tough place to play and even more tough place to win. And of course, Wisconsin was down this season, but they really just took control of that game, and they've making a run from there. That was the first game of the 13-game winning streak that they enter the Final Four on as well. And I also think that the Maryland game that I had referenced earlier, it was let me look this up. It was January 15th when it looked like they were going to lose to Maryland, and they got kind of last-second free throws on. Same thing, a long pass where I can't remember who it was who got fouled. It just seems like so long ago. That was almost 3 months ago. Got fouled, and they hit the late free throws to steal that victory. And it was kind of like, wow, they really pulled that one out. Purdue, the game before that against Purdue, where it was the same thing came down to, it was a last-second game. The officiating was questionable. A lot of things were going on in that game. I think those 2 games also told me a lot about Michigan. Like, they can build on these finishes. They can really make a run here, wherever that is.
Well, what's even more impressive, I think, to me and to a lot of Michigan basketball fans is how this team made it to the Final Four now through the first 11 years of Coach John Beilein's stay here. Defense was not something that we talked about a lot. We did talk about it, hoping it would be better. But this year, and especially in this tournament, the offense has really only had one good game, I should say, against Texas A&M. Defense is what's driving this team, Rachel.
Absolutely. That's one thing you think about basketball, and you don't think a lot about defense. Again, I'm not a big hockey fan. It's not like hockey where, a shutout is a sign of a good game. Basketball is whoever scores the most wins. But if you look at defense, it's more subtle tactical things this team has to go to. Putting hands in the face of a 3-point shooter, or trying to find a way to keep a taller guy off balance while being smart, while keeping your feet on the ground and trying to stay planted in play. There's a lot that goes goes into playing defense, and it's more different to qualify and quantify that in basketball. It's basically you got to keep the team from scoring. You got to keep a team scoring fewer points than you do, and Michigan's done a really good job on that. Like I said, they're I think 8th or 9th in the nation in total defense. When they went into the Florida State game, I think they were giving up an average of maybe 63 points a game, which is it's pretty good in basketball. And that's one thing, again, when we look at defense, you can't look at the score sheet. You have to look at tactical things that are done. And Michigan's done a very good job of refining that as the season has gone on.
Absolutely, it has. And we know this team can get on a roll offensively. And to me, that all starts with the point guard. Now, we've talked about how many moving parts this team has and the one maybe superstar in Mo Wagner. But to me, it's the quarterback, the guy that has his hands on the ball, and that's Xavier Simpson. Started the season rocky, was put on the bench, came back. And aside from his free throws right now, well, really all season, he has really developed into the leader, hasn't he, Rachel?
Yeah, he's really come on strong. He looked a little shaky against Florida State. I think I noticed, a couple guys were hesitant to kind of pass the ball. He's a little thrown off by all that athleticism and whatnot. But again, he's, through the course of the season, he's really come into his own as well. He's a smart guy. He's a strong guy. He's really worked hard on his game, and a lot of him, he's definitely a longer term guy. He's a littler dude, a shorter dude, but he, again, he really, finds a way to really get the offense started for Michigan and really, call the shots. He's done a really good job developing. One
of the things I did notice on Saturday night is we all saw the threes weren't falling again. Really, the outside game wasn't working at all. When he slowed that offense down, got it into their sets, and he penetrated. That started to open things up. That's a part of his maturation process I think we've seen from November to now. When he does that, he realizes he can bring everyone into the game, which is what you want your point guard to do.
Absolutely. They have to have a really strong vision of the court. Again, like you said, they have to know where all the moving parts are as well. That's a great comparison. The point guard is like the quarterback. He or she, on a women's basketball team, has to take a quick look at the defense. They have to see where their teammates are. They've got to make those quick decisions, and they've got to, everything comes back to them. They're the ones who are, the heartbeat of the offense, if you will.
With us here on our Game Day segment this week is Rachel Lenzi, who covers Michigan for Land of 10. And, of course, we're talking about the Final Four. This Saturday, Rachel, in the early game, we get a matchup with really the sweethearts of the tournament, Loyola, and, of course, Sister Jean. Can't forget about Sister Jean. What a story they are, Rachel.
Oh, exactly. Loyola is a great story. One thing I really like about this year's tournament is that we're not seeing the Blue Bloods get to this point, aside from, Kansas as well. I remember all the Villanova teams in the 80s with Raleigh, Massimino and whatnot. But, Villanova has really made a great comeback. But you look at that, the left side of the bracket, as I call it, it's really refreshing to see, a little school out of Chicago that, I think one of the most famous ones that I recognize is the actor who plays Stanley from The Office. I'm a big Office fan. He's a Loyola graduate. But, it's such a great story for them to see that come up. See the small schools. I think about, there's always a great story. In 2006, there was, George Mason that made the Final Four, little state school out of Virginia. And when Wichita State made the Final Four 5 years ago, there's mid-major conferences. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think that is great for college basketball as well to see. Again, like Michigan, Loyola is a team that got strong, went on a run. They've got a very, very bright, kind of under the radar coach as well. And I think, I think it's a great story for college basketball and for the NCAA tournament as a whole. And one thing I'd like to see with the NCAA tournament is more teams like that. We have Texas Tech in the Elite Eight. That was, pretty great. Florida State in the Elite Eight as well, a team that hadn't made it in 25 years, hadn't made the Final Four since the early 1970s. I would rather see that for the NCAA tournament, see those unusual teams, non-traditional teams, if you will, go far, reach the Elite Eight, reach the Final Four, as opposed to just, having the Blue Bloods in.
No, absolutely, I agree, and it's made it a great tournament to watch. And of course, with this Loyola team, I thought it was interesting. After the game, Coach Beilein was saying he asked Coach Yaklich, one of his assistant coaches, what he thought of Loyola, and he said Coach Yaklich thought about it for a minute, and he said, Coach, they're pretty much like us. They're pretty much a mirror image. They play tough D. They're a team that has plenty of shooters. They can go inside. They can go outside. Your thoughts on the matchup?
I like it. I really, really like it. I hope to see a close game. I think that's another thing I like about the NCAA tournament. And especially even Saturday night game against Florida State, you want to see this go down to the wire and make this an intense game. I like when there's suspense in the game, and I'm really looking forward to see what a smaller score like Loyola. I mean, I will admit I haven't gotten to watch a lot of Loyola because I've been helping cover all these games with our team from Land of 10. So I really, really hope that Loyola brings a challenge to Michigan. I think it would be great for the sport and great for both teams.
Well, I think they're going to bring a challenge, and that's maybe the danger in this. I think for fans, maybe not so much for the team. Coach B is going to have the team ready, but as a fan, I can see a lot of people sitting back over the weekend saying, Loyola, okay, we're sort of rubber stamped into the national championship game now. But, you watch that team play, and you get the kind of vibes that these guys don't know. They're a little school from Chicago. They've beaten the big boys, and they have won some really pressure-packed games. This is a game that Michigan's going to have to bring their A game, or they're going home. Exactly.
I'm looking at the bracket right now. What Loyola beat, they beat Kansas State, which has that Kentucky early, and then they beat they beat Tennessee by a point as well, and they beat Miami, Florida, and it came down to, I think, some late free throws in that earlier round game. So they have not had an easy road either to get to this point.
Well, in the other matchup on Saturday evening, you have Villanova versus Kansas, and they are two of the Blue Bloods in college basketball. Well, your take on that game?
I will admit I live in a Kansas household. My husband's a University of Kansas graduate, so I'm a little biased on that regard. For the sake of my husband's happiness, I'm rooting for Kansas. But again, I do like seeing Villanova back in the Final Four again as well. But again, I do think Loyola Michigan is the more intriguing matchup as well. Kansas, I watched the game yesterday against Duke. I loved again the fact that it went down to the final minute, but I also think that was just one of Bill Self's best coaching jobs this season. Kansas has been such an up and down team. I think they've lost to Oklahoma State twice. I think they've lost at Texas Tech as well. And the Big 12 was sort of a dogfight. It's amazing that they were able to come out and win the conference. Yet again, it's almost like some people say, Kansas won the Big 12. I'm like, no, it's not an easy thing to do this year as well. And Villanova coming out of the revamped Big East, this is almost a throwback for them as well to get back into the Final Four yet again. But I'm looking forward to that one. That's the one I will definitely be watching as a fan.
Seems like a lot of folks in the media are pretty much crowning the winner of that game, Villanova, Kansas, as the national champion. And they are two supremely talented teams. There's no question about that. But looking ahead, always a dangerous thing to do, but looking ahead, if Michigan gets by Loyola, how do you think they match up with either Villanova or Kansas? And I know that's a tough question.
It is a tough question, and I always feel like I'm put on the spot whenever I'm asked these kind of questions. But I go back to Michigan can't worry about the other team. They've got to worry about themselves. They've got to focus on accentuating their strengths. Again, their defense, their 3-point shooting. They've got to maximize Xavier Simpson. If Moritz Wagner is shut down, they've got to have someone else like Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman, or get their inside presence to step up as well. Michigan needs to really. This is where they've got to look internally now. They can't worry about who's on the other side of the ball from them.
Well, I say this over and over, but I hope Michigan fans realize at this point what a great coach we have in the program in John Beilein. And this might be his finest coaching job in what has been a storied career, Rachel.
Oh, absolutely. Again, John Beilein's he's maximized everything about Michigan as well. He came in, I believe it was 2007, 2008 season, because West Virginia had won the NIT with him, if I remember correctly. It seems like so long ago. And, he really, he's been given the resources here. He's maximized that. He's done a great job of recruiting. Especially when you see about just all the bad things that have gone on in college basketball, especially right now with the FBI investigation, the underbelly of college basketball. John Beilein's been able to maintain an outstanding program, and that. So that says, a lot about him, a lot about the program, a lot about the support he's received at Michigan. And it's kind of funny. We had a piece on Land of 10 asking, is Michigan now a basketball team and not a football school anymore? They're a basketball school, not a football school. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that, but I really think the basketball team and the hockey team, which has made the Frozen Four, I think they've raised the bar for the football team. The football team's got a little bit to live up to now.
Well, absolutely. I mean, how often does it happen? I think the last time a school had their hockey team in the Frozen Four and their basketball team in the Final Four was Michigan State. That was several years ago. But what a huge week it is for Michigan sports fans. And if Michigan gets by Notre Dame in hockey on Thursday, I'm not sure what time the national championship game is in hockey, but I think that's on Saturday night, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I know that in years past, I used to cover college hockey. They would deliberately schedule the Frozen Four the week after the NCAA tournament as well. So let me just double check that. Give me a second. Pulling that up we have the whole schedule on Land of 10. The semifinals, believe it, are the following Thursday and Saturday, I believe. Yeah, April. It looks like April 5th and April 7th. So we've got a week between. We've got 1 week of college basketball. We've got the next week of college hockey. So the NCAA strategically spaces apart the championship so as not to draw attention away from one or the other. So April 5th is Minnesota Duluth, Ohio State, 6 p.m. and then 9:30 p.m. Michigan against Notre Dame as well. So that's Thursday, April 5th. And I think that's really good for the Big Ten also to see what 3 Big Ten hockey teams, including, dare I say it, Ohio State in the Frozen Four.
Yes, it's like a Big Ten party, so that's fun. For some reason, I was thinking it was going to be this Thursday, but just as well, that way we won't have to divide our attention come Saturday night, so good deal. So before we let you get out of here, though, Rachel, let me sneak a football question in at you.
Absolutely.
Yes, spring practice got underway last week, and of course, for those of us who've been covering spring practice for a long time, we know you really don't get much out of it from a media perspective at Michigan. You did when Rich Rod was there possibly, but really not right now. But what would you say right now is priority or job number one for Jim Harbaugh and his staff?
Well, they've really got to get the offense in order, particularly the offensive line. The offensive line was it was in shambles last year. It remains a question mark going into the season, and we had written about this on Land of 10 last week. Former Michigan NFL running back Chris Howard and I did a point counterpoint where I had said the quarterback, that's the biggest priority with Shea Patterson, Brandon Peters, Dylan McCaffrey, and Joe Milton in line. He had said the offensive line, and I'm going to say it's the offense as a whole, but I also have to agree with Chris. The offensive line has got to get together. They've got a great new coach in Ed Warner, who was at Minnesota last year. He was the architect of not just some great offensive lines at Ohio State and the offensive coordinator, but also, he's had a history of developing offensive lines. He did wonders at Kansas. Mark Mangino couldn't say enough good things about Ed Warner's work when I talked to him a few weeks ago. He helped design the triple option offensive lines at Army and at Air Force as well, and he's just a really, really great mind to have. And I think that was the best hire for Michigan staff. And they had a lot of new coaches come in, Jim McElwain to coach the receivers, Al Washington on defense as well, Sharon Moore to coach the tight end. I think the pickup of Ed Warner was impressive and smart and just tactically strong. And I think that's going to be the biggest priority, is really to get that offensive line, not just on the same page, but to optimize those players.
I agree with that. It's the offensive line, as we all know, is where it begins and ends. And of course, fans' attention is on Shea Patterson. Will he be ruled eligible? What's going to happen there? I still don't know what's going on with that. Is there a date, or is this whenever the NCAA feels like ruling?
This is an NCAA call. We asked Jim Harbaugh about this on Friday when he came out to meet with the media. And he said, he was asked, is there a timetable? He's like, no, I have no update on that whatsoever. And I think especially with this in the NCAA's hands likely now, I don't think people want to kind of upset the apple cart, especially the main players in it, Shea Patterson's camp, the lawyers, Michigan. I don't think anybody wants to publicly make a statement because, the NCAA is a funny bunch. We can't pull out the crystal ball and say how they're going to rule, because sometimes there's some logic where people say, oh, it can happen, but then it doesn't, and it's the other way around. So I think there's a lot of just, being tight-lipped just to be on the side of caution and hope that it does work out.
I guess the only thing that I worry about is, and why I would have liked to have seen, this taken care of before now, is here you go into practice and you only have X amount of practices, 15, and you only have X amount of reps for your quarterback. So you want a wide open competition. So you really have 3-4 kids getting snaps or reps in spring practice. Does that mean until Jim Harbaugh and his staff find out, yes, he's eligible or no, he's not, does that mean Shea Patterson gets less reps than the other guys? And if he does, that's not a good thing.
I think Michigan will operate under Shea Patterson being in the competition. I think they want to get him. I think Shea Patterson also wants as many reps as possible because if you look at a few of the draft projections for 2019, he's projected as a first or a second round draft pick. I think wherever he goes, or whatever happens, he wants to maximize that, if you will. So I don't see Michigan pulling back from giving him fewer reps or not. I think they're going to throw him in and operate under the predicament that he's going to play, but not under the NCAA ruling, if you understand what I'm saying. They're just going to say, hey, look, Shea, we're going to get you as much experience as we can and not worry about what happens.
Well, we're going to have a lot of time to discuss Michigan football as the practice, as we said, just got underway at the end of last week. But right now, it's a great week, great 2 weeks for Michigan with the Final Four this week, the Frozen Four next week. Doesn't happen that often, so as I tell fans, enjoy it. Our guest on this week's show has been Rachel Lenzi from Land of 10, who does a great job covering Michigan athletics and is a first-time guest on the show. And Rachel, it's been great chatting with you, and we look forward to having you back soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And everybody go to landof10.com/Michigan and check out the work from myself and from my colleague Kevin Doheen.
Great site, and we'll put the link up. And again, thanks for your time, Rachel.
All right, thank you.
Quick Hits is next as we wrap it up for another week here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Quick Hits today, the number 2 seeded University of Michigan hockey team earned a 6-3 win over number 4 seeded Boston University on Sunday in the NCAA Northeast Regional Final at the DCU Center. Michigan advances to the Frozen Four for the first time since 2011 and will take on Big Ten Conference foe Notre Dame. Puck drop is scheduled for Thursday, April 5th at 9:30 p.m., and the game will be televised live on ESPN2. The Frozen Four appearance will be the 25th in program history, which ties Boston College for the most Frozen Four appearances. With the win, Michigan's all-time NCAA tournament record improves to 53-29. With inclement weather in the forecast, the number 17 ranked University of Michigan softball team's series finale at Iowa, originally scheduled for 11:30 a.m. on Sunday, was canceled and it will not be made up. The Wolverines split 2 games against Iowa on Friday, after the teams moved Saturday's game up a day due to the poor weekend forecast. Michigan claimed the opener 4-1 on a third-inning 3-run homer from senior Tara Blanco, Megan Bobian getting the win, but they could not overcome a deficit in the second game and fell 4-3 after its 7th-inning rally fell just short and with the bases loaded. While Michigan has experienced several delays and schedule modifications due to weather over the early season tournament slate, the Iowa game is its first cancellation of the season. Michigan is 24-7 and will meet U of D Mercy on Wednesday at home, and next weekend host Purdue in a 3-game series. They are 24-7 overall, 1-1 in Big Ten action. Baseball has a midweek game with Central Michigan and stays home Easter weekend, entertaining Delaware in a 4-game series. They are 12-11 to start the season. Don't forget our free show app is available from the Google Play and iTunes stores. You can also hear us on Stitcher, iHeart, TuneIn, and Wolverine Sports Radio. If you get the show from iTunes, please rate us or comment on the show. Thank you in advance. That will do it for another edition of The Michigan Man. We're in for an exciting weekend, and hopefully on Monday, Coach B and his team will get their one shining moment and a shot at the national championship. If anyone deserves to cut the nets down in San Antonio, it's Coach B. So let's enjoy the ride, and whatever happens, thanks for another great season of Michigan Hoops. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Happy Easter. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until next time, take care, and as always, go Blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!